So this episode of Origins is a little bit different. We'll be heading up to the West Coast Fishing Club in Haida Gwaii. It's one of my favorite places in the world. I've been going there for 15 years. Really excited about bringing some of my favorite chefs from across Canada and the UK. We're gonna cook some meals for everybody. We're gonna be doing some demos. We'll be drinking some wine, and we get to go fishing.
Look into what makes up a great dish, and you'll find a spark of inspiration, incredible ingredients from remarkable locations, and the story of a chef's journey, each of them unique. All of these elements come together in food that tells a delicious and compelling story. Join Chef David Hawksworth as he explores his region, spending time with an outstanding collection of chefs, sampling their creations and finding all about their origins.
We're up at the West Coast Fishing Club in Langara Island in Haida Gwaii. And this all came about when I was at West Restaurant. I was maybe a year into it, and I got a phone call from the chef here. And he said to me, would you like to come up fishing for 2 days? And I thought I'd won the lottery, and every Christmas tied in together. I couldn't believe that I was, get the chance to come up here. I got the call, came up, cooked a dinner, and I've been doing 2 or 3 trips a year, doing different culinary events and charity work, and it's been amazing. When we thought about doing a culinary event and getting people to come around cooking, it was me, and I did kind of 3 or 4 different demos and did 2 dinners, and it was a lot of work. You were done by the end of it, and so I said, well, let's make this a bit more interesting. I'm very proud of being from British Columbia and from Vancouver, and I want to share this with as many people as I can. I convinced people here that, let's bring Derek Dammann, you've got Valentine Warner, Laprise. I mean, these are some of the best chefs that are around. And so, now we've grown this into a really big event. It's a real nice mix of people that come here, and this is really kind of a bit more relaxed. We eat and drink every day, so you may as well, learn something and get lots of information from everybody, try different things. Mark Davidson does a great job with the wines, goes into great detail, and you learn something about that and pairings. You don't have to go anywhere. You do a bit of fishing, and then they're cooking a great dinner, and it's a lot of fun. The demonstrations here up at Langara are interactive, they're fun, and we get to include the people that come here, and we want to give them something to learn. I want them to get a bit of information about the fish that they're taking away, and I try to get them to maybe do some different techniques with that. I want them to use the fish as much as possible. And then we get to talk about different ingredients, do a nice dish, have a glass of wine, and we go out to fish. If you can think of a better day, let me know, but I think that's it. So tonight we're going to do a nice sort of heirloom tomato salad. Got a little bit of an eggplant puree there, some burrata cheese, and a pistachio salsa verde, nice and fresh. And then we're going to follow that up with a nice little fish course with a broth. Want to keep it nice and light. And then we got some roast duck with an XO sauce, a little bit of a Chinese influence on that, some nice mixture of mushrooms. And then we're going to finish it with some roasted cherries and olive oil and cinnamon with a little bit of port, a yogurt ice cream, and a little amaretti biscuit and some salt on the top. So I want to keep it nice and vibrant, fresh and light, because it can turn into a bit of an eating campaign up here. So it's, you know, you got to keep it fun. Yeah, Derek Dammann, you know, from Vancouver Island, and he was in London for a while with Jamie Oliver, and now he's in Montreal. He's got a fabulous spot there. It's great having him here. You know, he's just a real passionate cook.
My name is Derek Dammann. I'm from Maison Publique in Montreal, Quebec. So I'm from Campbell River, so, you know, 2 hours away. I went to cooking school in Nanaimo. You know, the basic program teaches you fundamentals and yada, yada, yada. Then went off to Victoria, did an apprenticeship in Victoria, worked in a few restaurants, and then decided I wanted to go to England. So I went to London. I worked in London for 5 years. Worked in some amazing restaurants, but also got the ability to travel. You know, going to, you know, Spain and Italy and France, and, you know, eating at little hole in the walls is always the best little education you can get. Grabbing a pastry from here or a little snack from here and seeing what's out there in the world and what other people are doing is so valuable, such a valuable education. Couldn't renew my visa another time, so decided to cut my losses and come back home to Canada, and thought I'd check out Montreal and see what that was all about. In my mind, I was going to go there and then slowly make my way back to British Columbia, where where it's home, and bought a one-way ticket, went to Montreal, and basically never left, and been there ever since. So just over 10 years. The idea behind Maison Publique, once I came back from England and, you know, traveling around Europe and stuff like this, I really like the idea of a Canadian cuisine. You know, it gets a big stereotype of Canadian cuisine. Basically, all the foods that are in Strange Brew is what people think we eat up here from outside. You know, like, you know, back bacon and donuts and poutine and, you know, that sort of thing. But we have a really rich culinary history and culinary scene right now with some amazing chefs. Traveling through Europe and seeing different countries and seeing, you know, you're eating French food in France and drinking French wine, and Italian food with Italian wine, and we have all the resources here to be able to have Canadian food with Canadian wine. So that was sort of the approach that I've been taking for the last little bit. If you take a step back and look from it from an outside point of view, people are extremely jealous of what we have. You know, we're exporting food all over the world, and we have amazing ingredients in our back door. You know, what comes from here in the West Coast, and then, you know, Quebec. If you go to New York and people say you're from Quebec, and they're like, oh my God, the food there is so good. Like, you guys have the best foie gras, the best cheese, and you know, the pork and the lamb. So yeah, people are very envious of what we have. So I just wanted to showcase the bounty that we have here. Yeah, making a bunch of stuff tonight, 5 dishes. I brought lardo that I cure at the restaurant, so we're doing a dish with homemade lardo and peaches and blackberries, just a nice little sort of antipasti sort of thing. Mussels, but done like escargot, with escargot butter. Pork and clams, which is going to be delicious. It's pork, clams, fried potatoes, aioli, you know, all like little bits of ground salami through it and stuff like this. It's delicious. And oysters that I do at the restaurant, actually, they're one thing that's never come off the menu because we sell so many and people love it. Is oysters from Quadra Island. So we have these big beach angel oysters that we bake in the oven with Marmite and mushrooms. What I find makes a really good dish is, you know, dishes that are ingredient focused. You know, a vegetable's the star, or like a certain piece of protein is the star, but mostly, you know, trying to find, you know, that balance of acidity, salt, whether it's a little bit of smoke, lots of herbs. I like using lots of herbs, so I really like seeing that in dishes. If you were to finish it with some nice olive oil, we'd be friends for a long time.
Yeah, Valentine Warner, he's so much energy. He loves fishing, he loves cooking, and has such a passion for this.
My name's Valentine Warner. I'm in Canada, having come from London, and I'm a cook, food writer and broadcaster. I really got interested in cooking through my parents. My mum almost kind of never went shopping. She had an affinity to open the fridge and just make something up. My father was kind of very complicated. He liked cooking lots of rich food, but had travelled a lot as a diplomat and was also a very good cook. And I grew up in the countryside on a farm in Dorset, so food was about bringing the outdoors indoors. I understood kind of nature and food and the link. And my mum had an amazing collection of cookery books, and I just used to lie on the floor and look at pictures of stuffed boar or whatever it was, and I was just fascinated with cooking as a young child. The first thing I really got into was actually travelling in France with my parents, and I remember sitting at a table which was slightly too high for me with my napkin tucked in and this mountain of mussels being put in front of me, and then being shown how to use them like tweezers, and it became unbearable for my parents, because from that point on my brother and I pretty much 5 times a day in France would scream and howl and kick for mussels, and I became obsessed with them. So mussels was the first thing I really got into, and I just wanted to eat them for 2 weeks. I trained as a painter. I used to paint people's portraits, and then one day I was just thinking, I realised that I spent more time thinking about things I could do to goats, if you know what I mean, than I did about finishing my commissions. And I literally put down the brush and picked up the spoon, and I went to see Alistair Little and I said I want to start cooking, and he said, see you on Monday. My approach to food is really about understanding where I am. I don't kind of travel with preconceptions. I'm not at that Michelin star. I like to see what's around me. I like to know about the area I'm in. I like to take a walk in the woods and see what's growing. And I think you can always make food, and I don't think you need a kitchen to make it. And I'm very interested in food that's come from poverty, using things and trying to make them delicious, however simple they are. So I spend a lot of time talking to Greek widows about their octopus recipes, rather than hanging out with Michelin star chefs. Tonight I'm cooking a dish kind of based on my travels across Norway, with raw salmon, a little bit of seaweed, some crispy onions, dill, and then a curried vinaigrette. You see quite a lot of curry powder up in Scandinavia. And then I'm doing one of my favourite things, which is vitello tonato, but in a slightly different way. We're having hot veal cooked over charcoal, which you serve with a tuna mayonnaise, very classic Italian cooking. Roasted tomatoes with green sauce on them, burnt chicory, peppers and walnut oil, and chips. I think that's one way to get a crowd. I like my dishes to taste what that dish is about. So if I'm using game, I want the game to come through. If I'm using mushrooms, if something's meant to be crispy, well then make sure it's crispy, but I don't want to complicate things. And I think at places like this where stuff has to be brought in, why make your life complicated? I'm not into mousses and gels and foams. I just want good, robust cooking that you just put your knife and fork down and go, that was bloody delicious.
Dino Reinhardt is a longtime friend, just such a great guy, and I love having him up here. He's been coming up here almost as long as I have been, and he loves it, I think, just as much as I do.
My name is Dino Reinhardt. I'm from Vancouver, born and bred. Who inspired me to cook? My family. My grandmother, she was a great cook, and so was my mom, and I love to eat. So that was sort of a natural progression. I started making cakes and pastries at a young age. And I started taking on dinners every Thursday night for the family. And I would use National Geographic's World for Kids, and I would find recipes in there from India, China, and I would do ethnic cuisine. So that's sort of how I started cooking. My philosophy has changed a lot over the years, and I think mostly because I've been doing it for almost 30 years, so I've just grown and become a lot more comfortable. I try not to have a big ego about things. I love to eat, and I like to cook the way I like to eat. And so I try to, you know, cook food that I enjoy for people, and I find that that's sort of what I've done. With the wine education, becoming a sommelier, it's made me think about the flavor components a little bit more. And so, you know, originally when I first done my sommelier degree in '99, I was like, well, you know, it hasn't changed my cooking style, but now that I think about it, it probably has quite a bit. My dish tonight is the squid ink risotto with Dungeness crab, prawns, and a shellfish vinaigrette. Squid ink's kind of unusual. Usually people find it very intriguing to have black. I love risotto. I find that most people love risotto. Risotto with seafood is such a great mix of flavors, and it can be quite light. It doesn't have to be heavy. That's one thing I learned from David, was how to sort of lighten the risotto. I think doing it with the squid ink is going to be a nice punch. I've just made it an endeavor in life just to enjoy food and wine. I call myself the bon vivant, so something I learned in English literature, and I was just like, okay, great. I mean, to live and enjoy life and be jolly, and you know, I guess that's sort of also been part of my philosophy.
You know, as far as salmon fishing goes, this is it. This lodge, the guides, you know, the chefs, everything about it. The island is fantastic. It's really the best place on the planet to go salmon fishing. You know, this is the real epicenter of salmon fishing on the planet, basically. And so you've got, you know, 5 different varieties of salmon. They all come to this island. They're making a decision where they're going. You know, when you get it right here, it's just completely incredible. Normand Laprise, he is, you know, the king of Canadian cuisine, and just such a great guy, and so passionate about what he does. So it's an honor to have him here.
My name is Dammann from Montreal. I run 2 restaurants, Restaurant Tokay, and I run the Brasserie Tea, is a little sister of the Restaurant Tokay. My philosophy and the approach of the food is the same than 22 years ago when I opened Tokay. My big goal is not to create, is not to, for me the creation happens day to day in the kitchen. That's a natural thing. We don't have to push too much, because when you push too much, you can lose your way, your direction. For me, it's about quality of produce, it's about traceability, it's about to know everything arrive in my kitchen or perfect on my way. The food is very central to my life, because when I go to the cooking school, I don't fall in love with cooking, but I'm start to be passionate, try to learn more, because my goal is to move, to travel. And step by step I meet some chef and I start to be passionate, but I just realized on that time is when I start to be a chef. Sometime a magazine call you to know, oh wow, you're a chef and where you're from. And I just realized I live in a farm when I'm young, from 1 year old to 11 years old. I live on a farm, and if you go back a few years ago, and you have to be a chef is not à la mode. To have a big store like a grocery store, like Laprise, like every store like that in the country, you have nothing. You only can buy at the village store flour, sugar, you know, the basic thing. And on the farm we have to survive. And we eat everything we grow, we eat it. For winter, we put in a jar like the beans, the tomatoes, the herb for the winter, because we have to feed ourselves. And that's remember me when maybe I'm 32, 33 years. What I remember is that time of my life. The food are not very creative, but the food are consistent. The chicken we had, everything is natural on that farm. It's a small farm where I live, and everything natural. We never go to buy food from outside of the country. And for me, this is when I learned about the palate, but I never realized that until 32 years, when I start to be a chef, and people ask me, where is from your philosophy? And I just realized with what I do in France, what I learn and what we do on the farm is the same, but with the same level, you know, upscale like a very serious restaurant, 2-star Michelin, blah, 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 and farm, but the same goal, quality of produce and traceability. And for me, I says, that's my goal, that's where I like to go, is focus on that. Yeah, we are right now Sunday and I have to cooking in a few hours. Menu is looking to be a scallop, Magdalen scallop from Magdalen Island in Quebec, and I'm looking to do the lamb. That's the lamb I work for now 10 years, the same farm. That's 100% pure raised lamb, is a Texel lamb, and I bring it with me just to make a different flavor from Quebec, and I do a little mix with some produce from here. For me, what makes a good dish is not something you mix all together, give one flavor. That's important for me. If you find corn on the plate, you find lobster, you find oyster mushroom, it's very important for me you're able to find a very different taste. And the most difficult thing is to bring everything together and it's working. And that's the way I like to cook. That's the way I like to define myself and my style of cooking.
Nice.